Hello, it's May 2022, and before I really get into this video, I'm going to share a story analogy, which is going to segue into the first topic of this video. Now, what I'm going to talk about is professional fighting, specifically kickboxing and the 1980s. Now, in the 1980s, there was a bit of a clash between North American kickboxing and, for example, Muay Thai, Thailand. And there was a really interesting fight that took place at the time. And it showed how the two different styles of kickboxing, one actually became dominant over the other. And it's an interesting piece of history. And in fact, all that was the precursor to modern day professional fighting. And before it became what is now known as mixed martial arts, it was called freestyle. And basically freestyle was literally anything goes. There was no weight classes, no safety, anything. And sometimes the conditions of fighting were less than optimal. I'll just leave it at that. But that's not the point. The point is the clash between North American kickboxing and, for example, Muay Thai. North American kickboxers fought primarily for pride, for their ego. And when you compare that to why, for example, Muay Thai fighters fought to survive, literally. They fought to feed their family, not just their immediate family, but a generation or two prior and generation two after even. And they started off into their fighting career at a very, very young age, sometimes as young as 5 years old. They would be sent to these camps, and that's where they would spend their life. And that is the difference between, for example, fighting for anything, whether it be physical combat, like, for example, what I just said, or for freedom, truth, justice, whatever. So we have the Muay Thai fighters in this example fighting to survive, where we have the North American kickboxers fighting for their ego. And that's why Muay Thai fighters to this day are well known to have hearts of iron. They will fight, and the only way to really stop them is to permanently put them down. And sometimes it happens in their style of fight, in their countries or surrounding countries where they have that kind of fighting. And this segues into, and I want to start off with my example. I was fighting for truth and justice and freedom. And I was doing so because of survival. To survive not only that time, but knowing, anticipating the repercussions if they were successful. So I fought for that. While, for example, the city of Calgary, the city of police, and the judicial system within, they were fighting for ego. Now, it could be individual ego, or it could be even ego of the system overall. Just ego. But I was fighting to survive. And that's the difference. Now, we could say that there was some, on my part, there was some ego as a secondary. And I can kind of see that to a degree, because where it impacted me being unsuccessful with my efforts for the alleged obstruction, alleged assaulting a police officer. It's kind of taken a little chip out of me. Not completely. There's definitely scars left behind. And that kind of segues into, what's my incentive now to I'm just trying to think how to describe this, how to cover up the system that I was once a part of. To, for example, comply with it all. I've already been incarcerated, jailed, for fighting for freedom, truth, and justice. And it doesn't matter how, and I've said this in many videos, it doesn't matter how or why something started. It's what, for example, a person is having to face in, for example, the courts. And that's what I had to deal with for many years, was the false allegations by 2 former officers of alleged obstruction, alleged assaulting a police officer. And from that, it's interesting, especially other people in authoritative positions, accepting hearsay from others. And hearsay, most times, is based on lies. Sometimes it's just based on making uninformed conclusions or misinformation, either by chance or design. But regardless, people will listen to hearsay, despite any independent evidence to the contrary. And a lot of people will try to justify, well, there must have been something, where in reality there was nothing. Just a lot of mistakes by a lot of people. And we not only see this with authoritative type of people, and I'm not picking on any professions or anything, I'm just simply highlighting some observable points. You know, we see this throughout society. Use, for example, the truther community. Same thing, it's all hearsay. People listen to hearsay. When somebody comes along, something that's contrary to that, well, they have a hard time wrapping their heads around it. And even if there's a plethora of independent evidence, no matter what the topic or it's a situation or anything, people will struggle because people want to listen to hearsay, third-party information. Now, I just want to interject here for a moment that, for example, my Facebook group titled Whistleblowing and Exposing First-Hand Knowledge. When I share my story, say, for example, as a whistleblower with regards to the sex trafficking or sexual abuse of vulnerable women within the mental health industry in the city, in the city of Calgary, implicating the provincial health care a little bit, that's first-hand knowledge as an insider, or at the time insider. So that's whistleblowing. And this expands into exposing, even whistleblowing, about the police, judicial, and political corruption within the city of Calgary. Again, being a former insider makes me a whistleblower, as a bunch of people told me years ago over the years. Now, I'll also tell my story of the injustice, which is just my story. And what makes my story unique is the fact that I provide a plethora of details using independent evidence on how injustice is imposed, things that other people should be learning from. But for whatever reason, a lot of people don't like what I have to say because it's the truth, it's reality. And I'm also very much shadow banned, not only with my content for my videos, my posts on social media platforms, but even my comments and replies. They either just appear to me, no one else, or they disappear. And I've highlighted that in my previous video. Which has to tell you something. If me being a nobody in this world is being shadow banned for things that I'm saying, what you decide. Now, there's a lot of people who call themselves truthers and everything else who make the same claims, but there's different reasons for that happening. I'll just leave it at that. And I've explained, actually there's 2 videos that I made specifically dedicated to the fact where I had offers to be what I call an online celebrity. And how I turned that down, I had 2 offers. So I fought to survive. That was my fight. And I'm going to switch gears a little bit now. When you look at people who call themselves freedom fighters today, I'm not picking on anyone. Most of these people, if not all of them, are fighting for ego. Now, it can be said that they're fighting to survive because of their future, but they're not in that situation where they literally have to survive. They're on the brink. I'm on the brink. I'm one step away, literally, from sleeping on the streets and dumpster diving. I've been like that for many years. I fought to prevent what happened. Now, people can say, oh, we may not be there where I am, for example, but they're trying to prevent it. Well, okay, I get that because I did the same thing. But a lot of these people, when you actually listen to them and what they've done, why they're incarcerated, it's ego. They don't want to be told. And I get that too. So it's not a diss towards anyone. I'm just simply highlighting the reasons why, the 2 different reasons, the fundamental reasons why people would fight, whether it be physical combat like I use in professional fighting, or for truth, justice, freedom, and why I did. And what makes my story unique, again, I'm going to say, is that I provided a plethora of independent evidence on how and even why injustice happens. Things that people should be learning from. And that's why I'm sharing this. And I'm not trying to sound like a defeatist because I don't have a successful story. But this is what everyone, no matter what side of the fence you're on, is up against. And that's really all I wanted to say, is to give you something to think about. And all my videos just offer things to think about society overall. And that's it. I don't ever tell anyone what to say, think, or do. Never make any claim that anyone's special or that I know everything. I share what I know, which is more than most people. But again, now we're getting into ego, where who are you to know more type of thing, right? So that's really all I wanted to say was, or is, the 2 different reasons why people fight for whatever, and what's my incentive. I've had everything taken away from me. I've been incarcerated for fighting for truth, justice, and freedom. Not just for myself and the people that I, at the time, was trying to help, but for society overall. And how people will listen to hearsay rather than facts. They can't distinguish between the 2 anymore. Okay? Anyway, thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share. Now, it could be personal ego, and it can also be the ego of, for example, the city of Calgary, or the police, the judicial system of Calgary. All the egos trying to cover up their wrongdoings. And the more I fought back, the more they punished me for it. And then I was fighting for my future, to survive, to prevent the very situation I'm in now. And I'm just literally one step away from sleeping on the streets, dumpster diving, and fading away into history. And unfortunately, it'd be a false narrative history unless people like yourself watching this video, you have taken the time to learn my story in detail. I just fade away. So that's the difference, what I was fighting for. And I'm just going to interject. And I thought it was very obvious that, for example, with my Facebook group, when I say whistleblowing and exposing first-hand knowledge, now when it comes to, for example, the sexual abuse, trafficking of vulnerable women in the mental health industry at the organization that I was working at, that's insider information that I was sharing. I was whistleblowing. Okay, I wasn't going off with third party or remote information that was given to me as firsthand. And then when it came to the police, judicial, and political corruption in the city of Calgary, whistleblowing as a former insider, as well as sharing the injustices that I was experiencing at the time, and even now, I suppose. So that's the difference between myself and a lot of people I've talked to have stories of injustice, and a lot of people have come to me with stories of injustice, and by no means am I taking away from the hardships that they are or have endured. But it's not whistleblowing. Perhaps it falls under the category of exposing injustice, but it's not whistleblowing. And I just want to distinguish the difference there. And perhaps with my own story, there's a bit of ego there as well. And I can kind of see that where it has shaken up my ego a little bit for having the injustice being successfully imposed on me. I digress. Now, when we look at, I'm not saying anything bad about people who think that they're fighting for freedom and truth and justice and all this other stuff. But what I've noticed is a lot of people in these groups, in these movements, they're doing it for ego. Now, you could say that they're banking on their future to survive, which is true. But ultimately, it's about ego. They don't want to be told. And there's a difference when you're literally at that point of fighting to survive to, again, fighting for ego. I look at my life now, completely destroyed, shattered. I'm living in a prison, and there's no bars around me. And I've been living like this for a very long time, many, many years. And I said, what's my incentive? I've already been incarcerated in jail for fighting for freedom, truth, and justice, for speaking the truth, having my whole life destroyed, as well as being crippled for it. And people have said, well, maybe you should quiet up. Well, they destroyed me completely. Again, I'm in a prison right now with no bars. And perhaps we all are, but that's a different tangent. And for example, with my case, I present independent evidence, facts, far removed from me, with no influence on me, showing, for example, the complete opposite of the false narratives and false accusations against me. And I find it very interesting how most people struggle with and try to justify, make excuses, because the hearsay that they hear has to be true. Why would somebody say that? There's many reasons why. And even when you present, again, independent evidence on any topic, with regards to anyone or anything, people have a hard time with that. They listen to hearsay, especially when, as a lot of people would say, resonates with them, or at least default to say, well, there has to be some truth to it. No. I just find that really amazing in this world, how people will believe hearsay, lies, which end up being lies, or wrong interpretations, for example, of events, and they won't let go of it, especially the people who are saying the hearsay. And that ties in with the studies made famous by Julia Shaw, implanting false memories. And people start to think, well, this is how it could have been, to what was, to what is. And you can't shape that. And then you impose emotions in there, and, well, forget about truth anymore.
Listen to this and write it down if you can't remember it. You're never going to outgrow warfare. You simply must learn to fight. I hear people saying to me, oh, when is it going to get easier? When you die.